Alright, so welcome back to another One Piece card game video, and I think it is that time to start talking through OP04. And we're going to go ahead and start with none other than one of the most anticipated decks out of OP04, which is Dofi. He combines green and purple with all of the leaders being multicolored, and he is a pretty interesting one. While this might be sort of a beginner guide to get you started with Dofi, you can follow along with the video chapters below and as well as subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what else you want to see out of OP04. Now, when we're talking about Dofi, you probably think about the blue one, but this one is a little bit different when we're talking about the leader. And that is this guy, which is the, again, green purple for life. At the end of the turn, set up 2 of your Dawn cards as active. And in One Piece, everything's pretty simplistic, but the cool thing about it is that as you change something very specific, like your Dawn and how you interact with it, it does change the way you play. And with Dofi, you can kind of go all out. You can just tap out with your Dawn and then hold 2 up, or even more, depending on what you actually do want to hold up and what's in your hand, and then lean on your event cards and things like that that we're going to go through and incorporate that in the way that you play. For those who are my TBS audience or come from DBS, obviously this is like Soul Striker on sticks, just with less steps, right? I'm sure there's stuff in Magic, Keyforge, and other ones that interact with your energy or your land resources too. Cool thing about this guy is that he is still Dofi, right? He still is, he still has that name. He still has the 2 tags of the 7 Warlords of the Sea, and as well as the Don Quixote pirates, which is cool because some of the other cards previously really do support it, and as well as in the future. I don't think there's like a huge, pool of it, which is why we lean on the film package. So you might be wondering, why the film package? Why is everyone running this? Why is Japan running it in Asia, whatever, right? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, it just kind of makes sense when you think about it when on a 2-color basis, right? So green and purple, it just makes sense to put these guys together since they have a good amount of tags for it, and everything is relatively searchable and it works together for that, and it's consistent. Not to mention that it is relatively cheap outside of Film Uta here, with all of the film decks going up in price. A quick rundown is that, we have these 2Ks here in Shiki and 2020 Chopper. Those are searchable by Nami, which Nami you can play for 3, and then you pay 1 to look at the top 3. You can get a film card outside of Nami. One of those pictures, or one of the ones that isn't pictured here, is one of the 1-drops that looks at the top 5, I do believe. And it's the same sort of searcher. Now, you kind of combine these guys, and even if you're daring to play the 4-drop that plays a 3-drop, you can kind of play any of the ones I just mentioned. But really, the 7-drop here, the Monkey D. Luffy, you use this as a blocker of 7K, which is just gets removed all the time, especially going against blue. That's the most annoying thing now. Blue has a 6 cost that bottom decks anything, and Luffy's pretty much the biggest proponent of that. It just gets bottom decked at any time, but he gets to play a film or Straw Hat Crew type character for less from your hand, which is cool because that does go into Zoro or this film Uta, which Uta is cool because there's a couple things that you can combine that I like to do, where Uta is a 5K blocker, and on blocky -1, and you get to rest something that's 5 or less, and you can combine this with Thunderbagua, since Thunderbagua is a 2K, or 2 cautious to say. You get 4K, and you get to add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck and rest it when you use it, if your life is at 2 or less, which is pretty easy. You're starting at 4, you get to take 2 as a quote-unquote draw, and then you get to use those type of combos. As far as other considerations, there are plenty of other green and purple packages, right? So if you're really considering, more of a defensive or at least like mid-range sort of thing going on, you could lean towards the Wano or Supernova's type of packages, right? And so obviously Momo can search out Paradise Waterfall. You can have multiple of those in your hand to restand your kids or your killer or whatever it may be, to get those things going. I personally don't think that you should probably lean to use any of the -1 Dawn, -2 Dawn, whatever types of cards in purple, because it just doesn't feel right, especially since one of the biggest things that you have to think of or really consider is that the things that you do attach to your characters and your leader and stuff like that, they don't untap or get set to active at the end of the turn. They have to be in your Dawn deck, and it's very important that you play things in order to untap those or switch those to active. But again, you know, the 8-drop kid is still pretty dang annoying. The only bad thing about this is that, again, blue is going to be pretty prominent in OP04, just getting much more support, more generic support for removal. And again, that 6-drop that can just target kid, it doesn't really have too much protection outside of itself and maybe other blockers. It's going to be very annoying to deal with. My advice for this set, at least, is to probably stick to the film deck or the film package. I think maybe when the starter decks come out, that might have a little bit of better results, or at least you know, lengthen the card pool. But I think for now you're good with the film package. So let's talk about some of the new support. And honestly, there's a lot of cool stuff here. You know, with Miss All Sunday, where she gets to be played for 5, you get to ramp 1, adding 1 into your Dawn if you have enough, and then also draw 1 card. So going second, that curve feels better. It is in this deck specifically is a little bit better in the other. All right, let's talk about some of the new support, and starting with Miss All Sunday. She's actually pretty cool. You know, so you're able to add 1 Rested Dawn to your Dawn deck, or well, you're able to ramp 1 Dawn when you have 6 or more, and also draw a card, which is pretty solid. You know, not having counter in your hand is kind of whack, and it's also a little bit better on that trigger effect with a few other leaders in the, well, 1 specifically leader for Croc in OP04. So this is just an option if you feel like you need a little bit of better curve going second. We have the Palm Cannon, which is pretty cool. I mean, 1 isn't too far away from the 2 that you do set to active. So you know, being able to have a 6k power or 6k power for any point of the game, and as well as being able to ramp 1 after using Uta or using this Miss All Sunday, etc. You know, that is pretty, or not too bad, I would say. But most of these, or these 2 and purple in general out of OP04, is really catered to Croc. What it really comes down to are these other 3 cards, where Doflamingo, or Don Quixote Doflamingo, the 10-drop 10k, basically says you can't play the game anymore. It's pretty much my favorite card out of the set, which is why I'm doing this first out of all the other decks in OP04. It says that you can choose up to 3 of your opponent's rested leader characters, leaders or characters basically, and they can't switch to active during your opponent's active phase, or basically the next refresh phase, right? And that's super big. That basically says no to a lot of the big threats, like Mihawk or like Big Mom or whatever it may be. They pretty much can't do much of anything. And if you combine that with Sugar says you can on play rest something for less, but while it's on the field, which is very important, while your opponent plays a card, you get to rest any of the opponent's cards. It doesn't matter if that is the card that they played, or if you want to choose the card that they play, that is. And that's super good while you have this more and more or longer and longer on the field. So that way you can use this 10-drop. That way you can use something like X-Drake or something like whatever to pop it or to swing into it. It's pretty important. Sugar is very good. I don't care what anybody says, she is very good. But the 10-drop really kind of warps the game when you're playing multiple of them. And you know, OP04 kind of introduces late game solidarity basically for every single color, it feels like. And I think this is what green wants to do now, outside of that 8-drop kid. I mean, you can play both, but this is why you play the deck. You you pay 10 and then you untap 2 and then in the turn, and then now you have some defense and as well as a big 10k that stopped the turn. And if you ever played like Digimon back in the first few sets, this is basically Puppet Bond. A 5-drop event card. A weak man can't choose how to die. I don't know if that's actually the translation for it, but he basically says that you can switch one of your opponent's leader or characters into rest, and then after that you get to KO something with 6 or less. The reason why you run this is, well, one, for removal. This deck just simply does not have removal, which is why you might have to lean towards different combinations of colors and things like that for purple and green. But this is not too bad of a deal, because at the end of the day, it really just costs 3. That's kind of how you can view a lot of these cards anyway. And the trigger effect is that you get to choose 5 of your Dawn cards and set it active. Again, remember that if you attach a lot of the Dawn to your characters or to your leader or to wherever, you don't get that back. You have to make sure that those are gone, return back to your Dawn area, so that way you can untap using this card or your leader's effect. One more card I forgot to mention is Spiderweb, and it's just a simple counter. So you pay 2, you gain 4k during the battle, and after that you can switch one of your characters to active, which is why, again, one of the reasons why you can play the film deck. You can restand your Luffy or your Uta after you use the on block option. And of course the trigger effect is really good because you get 2k power for the turn, which even beats out Whitebeard. This is just another really good card that has Dofi on it and plays well with Dofi. And finally, here is the deck list. So basically, you know, the biggest thing about this, I think, compared to any other deck, is that it does lack a little bit of that counter power. So I think you're getting rewarded in playing things like your guilds, or holding that 2 up for some of these event cards, or even more than that, so that way you can actually utilize them, playing out those 7 drops to play out the 4 drops, etc. Right? And of course, you know, playing to that 10 drop, we do sneak in one of those Kaidos, because what happens is that you really want to close out the game, but you really use most of your resources for that 10 drop, and you're not really able to progress immediately after, because you can play the 10 drop, but then you have to remove their threats or end the game the following turn. What I like to do is just have that 10 drop there, have them take that life, and if they do take that life and they go down to 0 or very low and you're able to push through, Kaido kind of takes care of the rest. And at the very least, if they doesn't, then you burn through their hand, and then you have 2 open for one of your event cards. I think, again, something like Miss Sunday or anything else that helps you ramp might be pretty good in this, but I think overall it is pretty solid for what it is. You know, I think it is a fun deck. Oh, and we also did sneak in that Krieg. That Krieg pops 4 or less in rest, basically. So you get to pay 6, you pitch a card, and then you get to pop 4 or less, and it does have the ability to get double attack as well. So again, a little bit more of that aggression and things of that nature. And we do play 2 queen. You could probably play 3, you know, considering all the ones that don't have counter. I just like sneaking in some of these threats, and they actually do end up being pretty helpful. So feel free to not only use the deck list in the description below, but also edit it as you like. All right, so we're gonna start out with going against the normal Dofi, the OG Dofi, versus the new OP04. I did open up a Buena Vista, got the Nami, which is nice. I opened up, what, 2 or 3 of this 10 drops, so it was an easy mulligan as well. I went ahead and swung 5, going first. I just personally like to just go by curve, you know, play the Buena Vista, play the Nami, play the Queen if needed, or if I have another Nami, I can play that, and then also trigger one of their effects. This guy's gonna go ahead and use the entirety of his Dawn here, and I kind of wanted to get rid of this Boa Hancock, so I went ahead and just did that. And I decided, instead of going 7, because the plan was to go 7 to his Boa Hancock and get the draw from Nami, and then if he wasn't about that, then I was going to go ahead and use 7 for the leader into the Boa instead. And I untap 2, which is the whole point of the deck, and then use an event card to protect my Nami. I unfortunately ran into 3,000 worlds, and then Nami just went bye-bye, which is kind of lame, because this is just what blue is in OP04. They just kind of remove every threat that you have, and it just happens over and over again. I was just figuring out, what do I even want to pitch? Like, my entire hand is actually kind of great. I really wanted to use sugar here, but I ended up just not using that, or not doing that, because I get to untap here, and as well as use my queen as a blocker. I can just not really worry about my Uta being swung at, and she ended up being swung at, so not much we can do there. I used the Buena Vista because I wanted to get a target for my Monkey D. Luffy, the 7-drop in my hand. So I was just doing my math here just to make sure. I wasn't too afraid of anything in the trigger or life triggers. So I went ahead and just swung. Plus also, he was just gonna not take it anyway. So I think I'm just gonna counter out here, say no blocker, of course. And then this 12k, I think I'm just gonna go ahead and take it, because now I can use the 10-drop. I can use the 10-drop if I really wanted to make sure his leader and as well as his 10-drop doesn't swing. I went ahead and just swung 5s here, and really the plan is to survive next turn, which is gonna be fine. I can either pump Gibson his Law after blocking, so if he swings with Mihawk, I can just block with Uta -1, or just get 3,000 world again and just cry in the corner, I guess. I think we just go ahead and pump Gibson here. It's probably one of the better ideas, because he's only swinging 9. I think that wasn't really the best case here. One of the things that blue is running to, or can run into, is the fact that you're using a lot of resources just to bottom deck or remove some of my stuff, so you're not really progressing anything. I guess it would be a little bit different if I didn't use my 10-drop Luffy or Dofi. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and use my guild and my Uta, get the blocker for one of these bigger attacks, and then just get bottom decked again, I guess. That is what the game is. So we take this one, just do the math of making sure that we can get out of the last attack there. I have a couple options here, but I think really the best way to do this is that he only has 1 card in hand, right? He spent all of his Dawn just bottom decking and removing and returning and stuff like that, all of my threats, which is cool, I guess. But at the end of the day, my hand, well, the amount of attacks that I do have, along with the amount of cards you have in your hand, is just not going to equate here. Because going 9 here and then going 10 is basically all I really need to do in order to win here. So that was not too bad. Again, blue's super annoying because they're just going to keep bottom decking things. They're going to 3,000 worlds. They're going to use the 6-drop in order to bottom deck whatever you have. And then of course this 10-drop Kaido is a huge threat, right? It's a 12k 10-drop that removes 2 things. And that's super annoying because you lose your Nami, you lose your queens, you lose a lot of different things. And I didn't even get to show off the guild, so hopefully we can do that in the next game. Okay, so we have Issho, which is my second favorite deck out of OP04, which is most likely going to be again after this guide / video. So he starts out with a brand new, which is pretty typical. I went first again. I prefer going first. Going second isn't that big of a deal because you have a little 4-drops with Uta and Zoro. You can use Nami with the leader ability, or the Nami ability. You can use Nami ability into guild the next turn on 6, and then go from there. But we're just gonna go for value. Looks like he is as well. And then I went ahead and kept swinging. He just took everything. So I'm a little surprised on that one. The cool thing about Issho is that you can restand things at the end of the turn, so you can use bonding pretty freely and then untap it right after. It looks like he's just gonna go ahead and Kobe my Uta, which again, his other static ability is just to reduce everything by 1 with 1 Dawn attached. He's gonna keep that Bonnie pretty protected. My hand is like whatever, honestly. It is pretty much whatever. I got the Luffy, which is good because now I can Luffy into Zoro or I can Luffy into Uta next turn. And then the following turn, I can just go ahead and use my 10 drop, depending on what he gets out. Like right now, like I said, he's just putting out value. I think he needs to play some 5 drops in order to threaten me a little bit better. But I went ahead and played Guild because the longer that Guild does stay out, which shouldn't be that long against black. Usually they just play Sakazuki or something like that, which is good for me because now if you play Sakazuki, that's 1 less card out of his hand, and as well as he can't restand his Bonnie. But it looks like he's just going to go 6, which is a bit of an awkward number. I don't have any 2Ks in my hand, which is kind of an L. That's one of the things that you have to sort of deal with when playing this deck as well. He's going to go ahead and pop my Nami, which is fine, to be honest. I'm at 9. Which is probably one of the better. It's gonna be fine to, you know, whatchamacallit, clear out this board here because I can go 1 here. Literally, you can get 1 card of a hand, or he can face a 6K swing afterwards because I'm just doing the math into my 7-drop Luffy, and then also the 2 cards or 2 Dawn that I put underneath. I can just use that for Guild to draw 2. And then now I can go ahead and take out or put out my Zoro, which is nice. And honestly, as bait, I think I probably should have just used Zoro before to hardcast it instead of using my my Uta, but it's fine. He went 6 to go into my Guild, and that didn't really do too much because I have my Luffy. And I was like, I don't want to use any cards in my hand. I have my Doflamingo, I have my whatchamacallit, I have my Spider's Web to restand my Luffy. And I'm just using any of the resources in my hand, and honestly, him being a 0 and just being super frivolous with his life and just taking everything isn't really working out for him, I feel like. I'm gonna go ahead and just use my Spider's Web to restand my Luffy, and he doesn't really have any more attacks after that. I can indeed just swing out here, I think. 2 here, and then using Guild to go. I probably should have went 7 here, but I think 6 is fine with the law out. The reason why I can't play my 10, which is one thing you need to think about. Instead of using Spider's Web, I probably should have used Thunderbagua, so that way I can be at 10. Play out my Dofi, -2 for my Guild, and then after that I'll be at 10 again the next turn, so that way I can use another Dofi. But that was a little awkward because I went to 9, and then it's just, yeah, just whatever. But right now, I think more attacks is better than not more attacks. Does that make sense? I don't really care about the Guild and or Guild. If I'm saying it wrong, I kind of just don't care. I don't care about the 1 and rest because I have 1 inactive, so it's, you know, it's no big deal. I don't think this guy also plays his own Dofi, or yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a Dofi. He's a green Dofi card that you can play 5-drop afterwards. Spider's Web is sick because it's a 2K now. I'm a 7K leader. I'm like Whitebeard, but fair. Don't swing at me. Okay. I forgot. Like one of the dudes I played against, he swung into a 7K leader, and he was only 6 or 5 or whatever, and I was like, okay, cool. Doesn't look like that's the case. We have 2 Thunderbaguas, which is fine. Making this a little difficult for him. A 7K leader and as well as a 7K blocker. Yep. That's okay. This was the recording. This was the recording. All right. So I'm at 9 again. Again, I probably should have used Thunderbagua. That's just one of the misplays here, but it's not like I'm really gonna lose this one. He had 2 blockers. I had more attacks than he had blockers, and only 2 cards in hand. So that is the case. You know, that was the match. Not too hard, honestly. Not too difficult in general. I think I probably should have went a little harder on this first swing, but that's okay. We got there, and that's what matters. All right, one more with Rebecca, and I personally do not like Rebecca. I think she is cool for the types of decks that Zoro is and other things like that. But outside of that, I don't really like her very much. She went first, I went second. I played my little sugar. She can't swing into it, which is good, which means I can swing into her own Rebecca, and then on curve I can basically play out my Nami and just have another swing. To play against Rebecca is to have more things you can swing with, basically. And honestly, you know, I think just me swinging into this Sabo is going to be the best bet. I was gonna go 8 here, but I'm just gonna have him decide for me how he wants to approach that. So I think getting a 2k here from Nami is gonna be good. Now he's just using resources and cards out of hand. That is just gonna be a little detrimental for him later on, to be honest, because a lot of people misplay here where they just forget Sugar's like trigger. So like this is what happens. I think I should have rested the Luffy though. I think I should have rested the Luffy because if I rest the Luffy, he has to restand here like this, and then he also has to decide if he wants to swing with his blocker. So I mean, I just kind of made that decision in general, just for myself anyway. So I went ahead and went 5. I kind of want to do some damage here. I don't really have to worry about the Luffy too much, and then I'm gonna get my Luffy out myself, and then pass turn. So now I have a 6k that can swing into his own 6k or his lead and not really worry about putting Don underneath, and then also his Luffy, which I think just my stuff is just gonna get bottom decked. So there goes the Nami, and then he forgot that he can only attack character cards. So there you go. I don't mind swinging with the Luffy here, just simply because I don't have a Dofi to play the 10 drop, and you know, I can just restand it with Spider's Web, so not too big of a deal there. I think I can play the guild pretty safely because another 6k swing, so I don't have to worry about too much for that. I went 7 here because it just makes sense to use all my Don. No sense of using one less Don here. He plays out the Luffy, which is pretty annoying, to be honest. I think I Spider's Web here. Oh no, I don't. Okay, so I pump Gibson so that way I can get rid of the extra swing. If he restands and swings into my guild again, that's no big deal because well, you use so many resources. I mean, those types of swings are, to me at least, very important if you want to end the game. Basically, like you want to reserve those for, you know, pretty important scenarios. But I mean, you have the very good option to swing into things that are inactive, so you may as well do that. I'm just doing the math here. I'm playing out the Zoro again. Really good. Please, no more of these Luffys. Stop. You need help. Spider's Web. I don't think he can restand. I don't think he has enough to restand and drop. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. He also hasn't been using his leader ability, which also helps you mill and get stuff into the drop. So I'm just gonna do literally what I did last turn, which is swing 9 into the Luffy, swing into face, and then just play a 4-drop again. I can't. He hasn't hit me on life, so I imagine that I do have a 10-drop in life. He pops my Buena Vista. He's at 0, 2 blockers, and then these 2. What is it called? Leos, Koyos, Krios, whatever it is. It said GG. I had to go anyway, so no big deal on that one. Rebecca is cool, but I'm not seeing it. There's so much play in Japan, but I'm just not seeing it for a lot of different scenarios there. So hopefully she gets some representation in NA when OP04 comes out. But right now, she's gonna get her ass beat by purple green Dofi. So let me know what you think in the comments below. That's pretty much all I got because I want to run through all the rest of the OP04 stuff. So I'll see you in the next one. That is it. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Some of the gameplay was pretty fun, honestly, testing this deck. The next one up is going to be Issho, which is my second, probably favorite, I think. This is my favorite, like, competitive-wise deck. Like, if I wanted to actually play in a tournament. Issho is getting there too, but it is definitely one of my favorite decks, just because of the colors. Like, black and green are really awesome. If you want to see anything else, or any of the updated archetypes or leaders from previous sets too, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.